Hey everyone, Mitch coming in with the Commander Score Studio. Welcome to the show. So on today's episode, I'm going to be teaching you how to build a super powerful commander deck with an Omega level commander on a budget. So with all that said, well, let's jump into it. So the commander that I chose for this episode is a new one with Ghalta Stampede Tyrant. Yeah, Ghalta in a truly different way, though also still the same Ghalta being a 12/12 trampling Elder Dinosaur. This time, though, costing 5 green, which technically costs less than the original Ghalta, but technically doesn't because the original Ghalta has that, reduction essentially. That being said, can be built in a somewhat different way than the original Ghalta, which I built vehicles, but that's a different story for a different day. This Ghalta says, when it enters the battlefield, put any number of creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield, which is a crazy effect, essentially, where, yeah, that can be just game ending on the first time that you utilize this. So, this is a commander that, well, again, has an ETB, not with a cast requirement even, just a straight-up ETB that we can definitely use and abuse in some different ways. Though, that being said, we are in green, so, yeah, the amount of blink effects in green are, well, limited. That being said, on this episode, I'm going to be showing you how I'm going to be going about building around this commander, the different kinds of things that I'm considering for it, the different kind of avenues to victory, because, again, yeah, Ghalta is just a 12/12 a trample, so you could just win in that way as well. But also, yeah, big creatures too. So you're going to kind of get to see my thought process on how I'm going about this. And yeah, it's going to be pretty raw because, yeah, I haven't actually gone out and built this deck before. I'm not just, pulling the cards I've already built around. So I'm going to be taking you through actually my process. And I hope this helps out there when you're, thinking about building your own decks, maybe around Ghalta or other commanders that might be similar. So with all that said, let's jump into it. So first up, yeah, Scryfall is your best friend when it comes to building commander decks because it is an incredible search engine. If you haven't utilized it yet, I highly recommend it. There are other websites as well. I will mention EDH Rec is a great one, but I feel like some players out there lean a bit too heavy on EDH Rec, and just kind of get like, oh, well, this one has 60%, is in Ghalta deck, so I have to use it. Don't get pigeonholed into that. So what I like to do personally is Scryfall first, EDH Rec kind of at the end of everything potentially to say like, okay, what did I maybe miss? That being said, with Scryfall, the way that I go about it is USD less than 0.51 and then also IDG for this commander. So basically, learning the ways to type in these things. Eddie has taught me quite a bit when it comes to actually searching, but learning these things can really make things quite a bit quicker. So I'm only going to be looking at cards that are less than 50 cents, essentially, or 50 cents or less, I should say, in green identity, because my commander is green. So there you go. So for a budget player like this, this is a good way to go about to start. Now, when it comes to this commander, though, obviously some things to consider. Yeah, this commander, when you hit the field, you're going to drop a lot of creatures into play. So first up, I'm going to be thinking, okay, that's great and all, but what if I don't win right then and there? Yeah, I'd like to be able to reset my hand, essentially. So let's just do this. I'm going to do draw, and then type creature. So basically, full Oracle text, draw, type creature. Let's see what we get. So basically, I want to say, okay, what creatures can help me get back to a new hand for when I have to recast Ghalta or get that ETB again so I can take advantage of it again. You also, if you've signed in to Scryfall, you get this handy little thing right here. We can start a new quick list so that we can actually just kind of make our little buckets, which is what I'm going to be doing. So on this one, this is the bucket for drawing cards. And yeah, I'm going to go through, I should probably stop talking so much. Talking a good amount, but also going a little quicker through this. But yes, I'm just going to be adding some of these. If you just hit A when you're on top of one, you can. Keeper Fable is a good one because we're probably going to have a lot of non-humans in this deck, and whenever we're hitting players, we get to draw cards, so up to basically 3 cards in a turn. Obviously, our commander has trample, so it's a good way to get through. We'll have other big creatures as well you can get through. Garruk Speculator is a massive one. Whenever a creature power 3 or greater is battlefield under control, you may draw a card. That is huge because when we dump Ghalta and, all those massive creatures from our hand into play, we're going to meet that requirement for all of these. Even if we dump Garruk Speculator, we're going to meet the requirement for the other creatures. So that can just actually refill our hand right away, which is massive. Titanother Rex does pop up here as well. That kind of is a draw at that cycling. I'd probably more put that in the big bodies category. when I go about building decks, I try to kind of categorize these as best I can as I'm building it. That just seems to be helpful for me. That's just my own thing. Let's just put Titan Health Rex in there as well. I mean, it's not a massive draw effect, again, being cycling, but still, yeah, having 11/11 that we can just cheat and play with our commander is massive. Primordial Sage kind of works, not against our commander, I would say. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you may draw a card. If it was when a creature enters the battlefield, that would be better for us. That's okay, though. We're still going to be casting creatures, you know, throughout the game. Sandstone Oracle is a massive one as well. Enters the battlefield, choose an opponent. If that player has more cards in hand than you, draw cards equal to the difference. So basically, again, not say that we've got 7 cards in our hand, right? And 5 of them are creatures. We play our commander for the command zone. We dump our creatures into play. And all of a sudden, we only have 2 cards in our hand. Let's say our opponent over there, you know, has 7 cards. Cool. We go right back up to 7, which is huge. We've got Zenith Chronicler. This is a good one as well, potentially. This one might help out opponents too, but we're not going to be helping them when we're casting things. Whenever a player casts their first multicolored spell each turn, each other player draws a card. We can't cast multicolored spells because we are in mono green, so keep that in mind. Let's see. How about Battle Mammoth as well? Another big body. Whenever a permanent you control becomes the target of a similar ability opponent controls, you may draw a card. Opponents are probably going to have to target some more things because we're going to have some massive creatures, and we'll get to, you know, just adding straight up massive creatures as well. So this can be a good creature as well. Yeah, 6/5 for trample, or with trample for just 5 mana, or 4 if we foretell it. Tree Shaker Chimera, this one's huge as well. Basically a great way to essentially take a player out because all creatures have to block it. Essentially that can. And then when it dies, we draw 3 cards. So we swing a massive army at one player. They have to block just this, essentially. We take out a good amount of their creatures at the very least. But yeah, we could just take out a player if we've got enough bodies on the field to do so. And when it dies, it replaces itself with 3 cards, which is huge. So I will say when I am going through this and actually, you know, reading these cards and just kind of skipping over some, it does help me more and more that you play Commander to be able to just kind of quickly run through things. You can also be more specific on your actual, you know, on your actual searches too, so keep that in mind. Voice of Many enters the battlefield, draw a card for each opponent who controls fewer creatures than you. Highly likely that we're going to have the most creatures because we are just dumping essentially things from our hand into play, so a lot of creatures into play. On top of that, there are plenty of other great ones, I am sure. I mean, Crows and Tusker, this is another one of those that's like, okay, it's not really card advantage, it's like replacement essentially, because you can cycle it away. When you do, also you get a basic land in your hand too, and it's just a decent body, so it's flexible in that way. So I think, I mean, at the overall, we've got a decent amount of draw so far. Not quite done just yet. Overall Observer is a great one. Whenever creature you control toughness 4 or greater dies, draw a card. That is pretty huge because, yeah, I mean, most of our creatures are going to meet that requirement. And essentially, if our opponents actually end up dealing, you know, with our things, we get to replace them with cards again, which can be great because then we play our commander and then we have a new battlefield essentially. So keep that in mind. Chef and Monitor, yet another decent sized body, kind of like Crows and Tusker. When we cycle it though, we do actually go get a basic and it goes onto the battlefield. So keep that in mind. So this again is a flexible card that can help us ramp and also help us essentially, you know, replace itself, and also when it comes into play, just being a decent threat. Let's go to the next page really quick and see if there's anything juicy over here as well. Again, these draw effects, I'm looking more for, essentially for the most part, you know, mass draw. Green doesn't have too much mass draw. I mean, it does. I mean, I should say, green has a decent amount of mass draw, but it typically is in more sorcery form, essentially, not always creature form. That being said, I do want to kind of focus on creatures first before focusing on other things as well, because, yeah, again, the more and more creatures we have, the better it's going to be, essentially, when it comes to us actually, actually taking advantage of our commander's effect. So keep that in mind. Yeah, overall, I think we're good right now when it comes to this. I'm not seeing any other ones that really stand out to me for like, hey, creature drawing, you know, 2+ cards. So let's just skip over real quick, and we're going to take out the creature, and we're going to move on to the next section. So again, like I mentioned, we do want to focus on creatures for the most part, right? But we don't want to say, hey, only creatures. I mean, you definitely can build only creatures, but when you're trying to build a more powerful version of a deck, limiting yourself in that fashion might not be the smartest move. But we do want to say, okay, at a reasonable amount, let's include some non-creature spells that can really be impactful. So we're going to do so. Garruk's Uprising is crazy good. Enters the battlefield. If we control a creature power 4 or greater, we draw a card. So we're going to meet that most of the time. Creatures we control have trample. It's already great. Again, helping us get damage through. And of course, whenever creature power 4 or greater in the battlefield, we control, draw a card. Yeah, this does everything for us, essentially. It is incredible. So much card draw. Shamanic Revelation, just a crazy good card. Draw for each creature control. Also gain life too. Harmonize, draw 3 cards for 4 mana. Quite nice there as well. When it comes to other massive draw, we're probably going to have to, and here's Hunter's Insight. This is one I was going to be talking about essentially. worry about when it comes to dealing combat damage to players. This can just be an absurd amount. So basically, like a 3-minute instant speed, when a creature deals damage to a player, we're going to draw that many cards. Instant speed. So again, if we've got a massive creature getting through, or just our commander with 12 trample damage getting through, we can draw like 6+ cards quite easily. When it comes to, again, non-creature, we don't want to count on it too much. I mean, Season of Growth is decent because when our creature is out of our control, we scry one, which is nice, but we'd rather be actually just getting straight up card advantage, and we're not going to be casting too many spells that target our creatures, so keep that in mind. Glorious Sunrise is nice in that, again, it is pretty flexible. So actually, let's add that one in as well. This one can help us out in a couple of different ways. Again, creature control, get +1/+1, gain trample till turn, or we give a land, essentially a boosted tap for 3, or we draw a card if we control power 3 or greater, or we gain 3 life. Probably not going to use that last one too often unless we're desperate, but yeah. This probably is a good amount of non-creature draw. I mean, Fecundity is nice, but also if you're going up against a Risk-Rat style strategy, that's probably not the best kind of a thing because you're really benefiting them pretty heavily. Let's just keep it at that, okay? I mean, Hunter's Prowess is nice too, but that one really is kind of... it's showing what you are trying to do, and your opponents can really just try to deal with your things too. Versus like Hunter's Insight's instant speed, so it really can make a difference in that way. So let's just stick with that. I think that's a good amount of draw to start. And again, here's the thing. As I'm going about this, I'm not seeing like, just a full, list of the cards I already have, essentially. So obviously there'd be some iterations and some adjustments at the end and cutting some cards. So please keep that in mind. But yeah, I just kind of want to show you my thought process. Let's jump on to the next tactic though. So with this next tactic, let's get into the fun of this, where with Ghalta, I mean, this new Ghalta, what do you want to do? You want to get big, giant creatures into play. Now, I've already talked about some, obviously, but yeah, let's just get some big, giant creatures into play. We're going to go T-Creature again, because it's our type, creature, cool. And then we're going to throw down CMC greater than, what do we got? Maybe 6? Let's go 6. It's a pretty big creature if it's above 6. So let's do that. And let's just see, there's going to be different kinds of creatures in this as well. And this is kind of where, like, yeah, you can get pretty specific on what you're trying to specify. So you know what? Let's just do some creature removal too. So let's do ones that destroy, okay? Let's do ones that destroy. Let's just do something a bit more specific to start. We're going to start a new quick list. And we're going to say, yeah, the first one came to my mind was Terastodon. Enters the battlefield, destroying a lot of things. Again, doesn't have a cast requirement. Make sure you're paying attention for this because, yeah, there are some that are like, hey, if you cast it, you might not want to consider those because, I mean, depending on how good the creature is, because if you are just cheating it into play with your commander, you're not getting that benefit. Wolflord Primus, another great one. Enters the battlefield, destroying non-creature permanent, 6/6 to trample, and it's got persist. Meteor Golem is nice, but again, you only have so many ways to use and abuse ETBs with this kind of a commander. There are some, obviously, but Meteor Golem just being a 3/3, not really what we're looking for. Yeah, it sees a good amount of play. Obviously, it's the most popular one out of all these cards, but that being said, yeah, I mean, that is because it's colorless, obviously. It can fit into a lot of decks out there. Sim Primordial. I would love to use that one, but that is banned. I think that's going to be all for our destroys. Let's go into Exile. There might be some big exiling effects as well. Beanstalk Giant, I mean, that's something we might include later. Bane of Balaged, that is a decent, swinger. Well, we're going to be including probably some Eldrazi as well that can just demolish some things as well. Yeah, I think maybe there's only so many exiling effects. I mean, some of these obviously are like, hey, like Myriad's in there because it includes the word exile. We're talking about removal though right now. When it comes to that as well, let's go into Sacrifice, because we're going to hit up the Annihilator as well. So, yeah, Artisan of Kozilek, this is one where it's kind of a, not a feel bad, I would say, but like, hey, when you cast this spell, turn to our creature card from the grave of the battlefield. I mean, if we are actually casting it, great. We're going to have the mana for that, obviously, and we'll talk about ways to build up our mana. But yeah, a 10-9 with Annihilator 2 is already something that we're just okay with losing out on that cast trigger if we just cheat and play with our commander and be like, okay, cool. Demolishing you. Ulamog's Crusher, another great one as well. Hand of Emrakul, a 7-7 with Annihilator 1-2. So yeah, being able to remove our opponent's things with our giant creatures is just kind of insult to injury, which is absolutely fantastic for us. When it comes to that, nothing else is really standing out right now, so we're just going to stick with that when it comes to our massive creature removal. We'll talk about other removal here in a bit as well. But now this one, let's just talk about big creatures. And again, yeah, I'm doing 6 and above, right? I could just kind of lower that down to 6, lower to 5. it's going to depend on the numbers at the end, where it's just like, yeah, I mean, there definitely are some that are big and juicy, but you want to kind of say, okay, what are the biggest ones out there that I can really make an impact with? So we're going to start off with this. Let's go for that. Let's add in a new category, new quick list. So we're going to be going for ones that are just kind of high value right now. High value, big threat creatures. Mirror Battlesphere is nice, and this is one that like probably would get cut toward the end because I mean, I'm going to throw it in there for now. It is a good one, obviously, getting 5 bodies on the board, essentially. Speaking of that, Hornet Queen, yes. This one, again, is one that, yeah, is just a fantastic attacker and a blocker because you get 5 1/1 flying Death Touchers. End-Raise Forerunners, another great one. This one gives all our creatures, other creatures, +2/+2 Vigilance and Trample, which is huge. Beanstalk Giant. Very, again, kind of like the Crows and Tusker I talked about earlier, a flexible card where this one has an adventure for 2 and a green. Go get a basic one on the battlefield. Cool. So yeah, if you need to do that, do that. If it's just in your hand, though, later in the game, cheat out and play with your commander, which is nice. For instance, Avatar, a great way to pad our life total to an absurd amount. Whenever it and other creatures in the battlefield under your control, you gain life, you like creatures' toughness. That's going to be huge. Metalwork Colossus, this is one that I love in artifact decks. This isn't really an artifact deck, though, and sure, we might have some artifacts in play, but yeah, that's probably not what we're really looking for. Desolation Twin, again, if it didn't have that cast requirement, we'd probably, include that, obviously. It'd also be a lot better if it was like, hey, enter the battlefield 10/10. That'd be pretty crazy. For Phyrexian Triniform, though, this one has a death trigger, which is huge. 9/9 when it dies. It splits into 3, essentially. We can also on-court back out. We're going to have mana. We're going to do some crazy things. We've already got Ulamog Stretch. We've already got Titan with Rex. We already have Woodfall Primus. Breaker of Armies is a great one. All creatures able to block do so. So, again, yet another way, like our Chimera we talked about earlier, to force our opponents to block it. Great removal for their creatures and also great player removal, too. Dawnglade Regent, some great protection. Enters the battlefield to become the Monarch, so also, card advantage there as well. As long as you're the Monarch, permanents you control of Hexproof, that's a huge thing to do. Ancient Stone Owl is just funny, personally. I mean, it's a 12/12 for 10 mana, again, but we can just cheat and play with our commander. That's massive. It's going to cost 1 less to cast for each attacking creature, so we can even, again, cast this for free, essentially, sometimes. Trample, when it dies, we get a 6/12. Verdant Force, just a army on a body, essentially. 7/7, beginning of each upkeep, not just your own, so every single player's upkeep, you make a 1-run sampling. That is amazing. I mean, when it comes to this, we already have Tree Sugar Chimera. Giant Ankeg is interesting. Other creature control have Trample and Ward 2. Let's go with that. That's another way to protect our army, too. Primal Protector. This one does just have an Enter the Battlefield trigger. Enters the battlefield, counter each other creature we control. It's also a 10/10. And it's also one that, well, if it is in our hand and we don't have, early on the game even, we could probably get this out for pretty cheap. 1 less cast for each creature bones control. Again, you're playing Commander. This could very easily just cost a single mana. Lograph Monstrosity, 8/8 Trample. When it dies, exile, return to target creature cards in your grave to the battlefield. That is huge because, again, most decks don't really just have all big creatures. And yes, we've got some small creatures too, but chances are likely that we're going to hit 2 massive creatures and get them into play. Spearbreaker Behemoth, a great way to protect our army as well. By paying 1 target creature power 5 or greater, gains indestructible until end of turn. That is huge. It's also indestructible itself. Garrick's Horde, this one actually probably should have been, it should have come to my mind essentially when it came to card advantage, but this is one that I should have included in that, and I'll just add that in later. 7/7 Trample at the top card of your library revealed. You may cast the top card of your library with a creature card. So yeah, being able to cast cards off the top of our library, it's like kind of adding additional hand. And again, with a deck like this, having an absurd amount of creatures in it, chances are pretty likely that we will meet, that requirement of a creature being on top to be able to just cast it. When it comes to other things, Ancient Imperosaur is an interesting one, but again, we're probably not going to be convoking it out. Yeah, I mean, we would rather kind of just, cheat things into play. I mean, I go back and forth on that. Hierophant Biotitan is one that's, like, really hard to cast if you're not in a specific build with counters. We do have some counters, essentially, that we're going to be using, though, but a 12/12 Vigilance, Reach, and Ward 2, and it can't be blocked with tiny creatures, essentially, is pretty fantastic. Let's see. Look at this for the rest of the bottom of the library. With mana value, extra less. I don't actually, this one, again, this is kind of the thing where I've been playing Commander for such a long time, but yeah, there's so many cards that have come out that I'm like, okay, what in the world is Emergent Woodworm? Backup 3, so that's nice. Creature attacks the top X card of your library, X is its power. You may put a permanent card with mana value, X less on the battlefield. That's, I mean, not too bad, I guess, but it's a 4/4, so let's just skip on that. I mean, I think, Summerwald Beastmaster. So again, we might have some ways to use and abuse ETB, so keep that in mind. Enters the battlefield, you get a 2/2, a 3/3, and a 4/4, so that's a ton of power, kind of all just in one. And also creature tokens you control have Death Touch, so that's very nice, especially, again, if we do keep that Mirror Battlesphere in there, too, that worked with it, too. Shuchi Cave Guard. 8/8 Vigilance, Ward 4, so it's hard to deal with. On top of that, if it dies, you get 8 mana. So, yeah, if it dies on your turn, that can be pretty massive. Toxic 6, so if we want to take players out with Toxic, we could. Let's skip on that, though. And let's just see if we have anything else real quick on this one. Oh, Fanghorn, Tree Shepherd. So this one's interesting. 4/10, Treefolk control Vigilance. So I mean, this has Vigilance, but I mean, are other creatures going to have Vigilance? Probably not. We're going to have too much Treefolk. That being said, whenever one or more Treefolk, you control attack at twice as much green, so this at least will add some green when we attack. Most importantly, though, you don't lose unspent mana, green mana, I should say, as steps and phases end. So that is pretty massive for us. When it comes to that, I think we might be kind of at the end of our creatures. I mean, Tornado Elemental actually might be a good removal because we really don't have a lot of flyers. You were in mono green. So let's just use that as well. And just Battlefield, 6 damage each creature with flying. Yeah, that's not good for our Hornet Queen, but that's fine. Let's see. I think that's probably a Gigantomancer is just funny. I mean, and that would work well with tokens, but we're probably not going to focus on really taking advantage of that too much. So I think at this point, Blood Rush, that is great too. I think at this point, we're probably just going to stick with what we have right now when it comes to our big creatures, kind of like tally up our numbers later and figure out what we've got. Next tactic. Okay, so we've talked about, well, a couple things already. We talked about refilling our hand, which is important with this commander because, again, you dump the commander into play and you're like, okay, cool, just dump everything from my hand into play. We've also talked about removal. We've talked about massive creatures with massive effects as well. Now let's talk about actually getting to all this with some ramp, though, because obviously it's quite important. And there are certain kind of... Let's just actually cheat this real quick. Oracle Tag Ramp. Now, this is actually pretty good, typically, to actually capture what kind of ramp spells are out there in these colors. It typically meets that requirement. You might want to get more specific. I'm going to probably go with this, though, on this kind of episode, because when I'm building a deck, yeah, it can definitely take many hours. It can take days, actually, maybe even some weeks if I'm really hammering out on it and kind of going back to it. But right now, I'm obviously trying to include this, in an episode that's not too long. So let's just go with this and see what our ramp options are. And actually, let's do this specifically with creatures to start, okay? Because, again, we do want to be able to cheat creatures out as well. When it comes to actually cheating creatures out, though, like, yeah, I mean, mana dorks are nice, and it depends on the deck, but, like, it's also a risky strategy to have mana dorks as your main ramp source, because if there's a Wrath, then you are set back so bad that you're in trouble. And also, again, if you have Ghalta and you're just, like, dump everything into play, and then you only have, like, 6 actual lands, essentially, and then you've got mana dorks to help you get your other stuff out, and then an opponent Wraths, then you're really stuck. So, Wood Elves is a good one, because that is going to help us out and go to Forest and play Untapped, Farhaven Elf. Springmoon Druid, sure, that can help us out too. Let's see. Goreclaw is actually going to be great because it's going to reduce our creature spells by 2, which is huge, so keep that in mind. Land of our Tribe can help us out quite a bit. Yeah, let's go with that. So again, some mana dorks that I can actually tap for a good amount. Yeah, let's include those. We already have Beanstalk Giant in there as well. Tangled Florahedron is a nice one because that is a mana dork, but it's also an MDFC, so we're going to utilize it as a land if we need to. And then Hellish Dreamer is kind of a risk sometimes to actually hit something. Eudora is actually kind of funny. Whenever another non-token creature control dies, you can just turn it into a forest, so that's pretty huge. Actually, to say, okay, oh, you stopped me. Now I'm just going to ramp a ton. Tanuki Transplanter is absurd. Basically, whenever it or the equipped creature attacks, equip this onto something. You add amount of green equal to its power, which is insane. Yeah, quite good. Invasion of Zendikar, I mean, that one would probably be like the explosive vegetation that we might want, because that actually can flip over. And we can actually pretty easily get in there. Let's include that one for now. That might be a cut, though. And then, let's see. I mean, I think that's probably it on our creatures when it comes to actually us ramping with creatures. Let's move on, though, to the next tactic where we talk about non-creatures. Okay, so again, to just do non-creatures, we just go to -T creature, and there you go. So now moving on to the non-creatures, of course, there's plenty of fantastic green ramp. Now when it comes to mana rocks, some people still utilize mana rocks in a green deck. I tend to not, because land ramp is much safer. Also, I will mention too, some players out there like to include like a myriad landscape like in their ramp package, be like, I have 10 pieces of ramp and 2 of them are lands. I typically don't include those lands as like actual ramp because they're typically not very efficient. They are very effective, they're just not nearly efficient. So it's like a nice additional bonus to have that in your deck. But yes, that will be added into my lands package, which I'll just do later. Cultivate, though, a great one. This one is really good. Wayfarer's Bauble. This one is one where, again, turn 2 ramp can be fantastic and really put you way ahead of your opponents. And yes, I will include it. Rampant Growth as well. In green decks, some players don't include Wayfarer's Bauble. That's okay. Wild Growth. Again, I did say that land ramp is the safest. I'd say the second safest is actually enchantment ramp, too. Because, well, I wouldn't say second safest. Typically, players aren't blowing up lands, though. And a Wild Growth can be really good early on the game. Harrow, another nice one as well. Explore, it can be risky if you don't have cards in your hand, obviously. Fertile Ground, yet another good early ramp. Search for Tomorrow can be another turn 1 ramp essentially for you. Let's see. I mean, we already have a decent amount from our creatures. I'd probably have to count actually after this just to make sure I have enough. Broken Bond can be a good removal / ramp as well. Just for an artifact or enchantment, get a land for your hand into play. Nissa's Pilgrimage, getting 2 forests, essentially. So, yes, we are in Forest Spell Mastery. That could work as well. Let's include that. Although Spell Mastery, again, this is one where you, like, count up and you're like, okay, like, I didn't have enough. Grow from the Ashes, a great one. I absolutely love that. Basically, 1 land to play untapped or 2 if you kicked it. Already have Glorious Sunrise in there as well, so keep that in mind. This is probably going to be enough ramp for us right now. Again, I'll count at the end. We do want to make sure that we have enough, though. So, actually, maybe, you know what? Vascular Church is a great Explosive Vegetation type card as well because, yeah, being able to just throw 2 lands into play is very nice. Frontier Siege, actually, with this kind of a commander deck, might make sense for us because this is just free mana throughout the game after you get into play. Fawn Fertility, basically an enchantment version of Wayfarer's Bauble. Again, I just said that we're probably done with our ramp, and I'm like, you know what? Edge of Autumn, forgot about that one. Here we go. Amazing card. Basically, Rampant Growth with a requirement. Okay, 4 fewer lands. Do that, but also you can cycle it away if you need to actually, replace one of your things, which is very nice. Here's Respite. That is very good. If we can, incentivize opponents to attack us. They're probably not going to want to attack us, though, because we've got so many big creatures. This is Renewal. Yeah, go get 3 lands and gain 7 life. Lovely. When it comes to that, yeah, you know what? I might want to just go back real quick. Again, mistakes happen, Even I make mistakes. I make plenty of mistakes. So many mistakes. But yeah, when it comes to actually ramping Migration Path, there we go. Let's add that in. Explosive Vegetation. Because, again, we do need to ensure that we can get... If, again, you can get to your commanders... If you can get to your commanders, cost quickly and just dump it into play and then be able to dump your hand into play, you can really take over a game in absolutely no time. Let's stick with that. Again, I'll look at the ramp package later and just make sure that we have, I'm thinking like 15 at the least kind of sources of ramp. And yeah, that might include, probably wouldn't include some of the lands in there. The lands on there on top of that would be nice as well. But yeah, being able to just ramp a ton, be able to cast our commander again and again and again. If our commander is dealt with, we need to be able to recast it for 10 mana, 12 mana, etc., etc. We've got ways around that. We'll talk about that here in a bit, though. Because right now what we're going to be talking about is, well, hey, how to take advantage of that ETB, because our commander, again, does have an ETB, and normally you'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, sweet, let's just blink our commander. Here's the thing, especially on this budget, we don't really have too many ways to blink. Yeah, I kind of knew it was going to end up like this. So basically, Golden Argosy is a fantastic one, all right? When it attacks, exile each creature that crew this turn, return to the battlefield, tap to control the beginning next end step, crew 1. Any of our creatures obviously can crew that. It's kind of funny, having our commander pilot this thing because it's like, oh, cool, yeah. A 12/12 piloting a 3/6. Yeah, it's not that effective, but it also is incredibly effective that it can blink our commander and blink our things repeatedly. Again, we've got other creatures with ETBs as well we can take advantage of. So again, we don't really have many blink effects. What we do have, though, are like return, let's say creature, hand. And hopefully I don't get too many graveyard ones, but I don't want to not include those because they might have like a somewhat similar effect. So, let's see. We've got what we're looking for. I should be explaining this is ways to return our commander from the battlefield to our hand. Because if we can do that, then we can recast our commander again, which can then help us cheat on the mana cost of all the other creatures, which is huge. Let's see. So we've got return creature hand. Just want to make sure we're good on this. Return creature hand. I don't have any other things. There's certain cards I think should be popping up. And we'll talk about them when we get to them. There's obviously a lot of great cards. Okay, Decoction Module. This one's interesting because it's like kind of worth it. You know what? Let's just include this and it might be a cut. Because again, pay 4, tap, return target creature control to its owner's hand. That is nice, being able to bounce a creature back to our hand. So again, we can use and abuse an ETB. 4 is a good amount of mana. Unfortunately, it's quite a bit. But yeah, overall, that still might save us mana in the long run. If you've got like 4 extra mana and a turn, bounce your commander back to your hand, then cast it next turn and save mana on all the other giant creatures in your hand, so keep that in mind. Getaway Car is an interesting one. 4/3 with haste. Crew 1 again. Another vehicle that can help us. Attacks or blocks turn to 1 creature that crewed it to its owner's hand. So another way to essentially bring a creature back in your hand, so keep that in mind. Let's see. There's two that I'm thinking of right now that I hope we get to. I don't think we actually... There's no way I remove them with this kind of requirement, but maybe they're just not showing up. What is going on? Let's see. Return creature. Oh, okay, there we go. Return permanent hand. There we go. Look, here we go. Okay, let's see. We've got Ancestral Statue. That could work, potentially. That's just on, basically, entering the battlefield. There we go. Blood Clock and Umbilicus. Those are the two that I was thinking about. I forgot it's permanent, not just creatures. So basically, maybe it's players upkeep, they return a permanent to their hand, or they lose 2 life. That can be a negative effect for opponents where they're like, I don't want to return something. I want to actually keep it in play. So they lose 2 life. Whereas we're like, yeah, let's just bounce our commander back to our hand, replay our commander, and then have a good time. Always fun doing. I mean, I'll throw it in there. That's probably 6 mana is a lot. It can also just be a good way to save things, though, so keep that in mind. Also, when it comes to our commander, though, with all this ramp, we are probably willing sometimes to actually just, get rid of our commander and recast. So being able to do that, let's talk about some ways to do that now. So for this search, let's do sacrifice, because we want to find ways to sacrifice our commander. So sacrifice creature. There we go. Let's see what we got. And obviously you might end up with, hey, look, you get like, certain effects that are like, yeah, sacrifice this creature. There's better ways to search for it if you're typing in more and more things. And actually, I'll show you one that I really like, actually. So if you want like an actual, I'm sure there's better ways to do this. If you want like an actual kind of outlet effect, this is what I've found. Essentially, quotes with the semicolon right there as well. Or should I say colon? Evolutionary Leap. Yeah, that one's a fantastic one. Pay a green, sacrifice creature, and essentially get another creature from your library into your hand. Cool. We've got Culling Deus. That can be another good one. Another source of card draw, potentially. Tap, sacrifice creature, get a charge counter on it. Pay 1, draw a card for your charge counter. So yeah, that can be another good one. It really depends on your build with that one in particular. Magus of the Order is fantastic. Pay a green, tap, sacrifice this, another green creature. Go get any green creature card from your great library and put it on the battlefield. So have fun. Yeah, that can be fantastic. And yet another way to sacrifice our commander if we absolutely need to. Scourge of Skull Veil can be nice, but also just kind of gimmicky in a way. Yeah, I mean, I think there's only be so many ways to do this. Oh, here we go. Ooze Garden. Sacrifice a non-ooze creature. You get an XX ooze token in the play where X sacrifice creature's power. Only time you can play a sorcery. So yes, being able to do that can be fantastic. Unfortunately, Evolving Door does not really work for our deck. I mean, it does if we are sacrificing colorless creatures, but we can't really count on colorless creatures. So yeah, we're just going to be sticking with that. I think there's a good amount of ways to actually ensure that we can get our commander out of the battlefield when we need to, and then get it back into play when we need to. Okay, and me actually kind of showing you how I'm going about building kind of shows how, yeah, it's not a perfect way to go about building. There is no perfect way. It's just kind of your way of going about building. I talked about kind of different ways and different creatures, and then I also was like, you know what? Let's talk about removal. And now I'm like, okay, 5 turns later, essentially, of tactics, I'm like, yeah, now let's talk about removal that is non-creature. So, -T creature, let's just do Oracle Tag removal and see what happens. So, non-creature removal. Yeah, there's going to be some great ones in green. Green's got a lot of really good ones. And Return to Nature is fantastic. We already have Broken Bond in there. Colony Ambush is fantastic as well. Basically, have a creature fight. And also, this is an NBFC land again, so it can really help you out. Again, we do want to limit. We already have a good amount of removal. We want to limit. So I'm going to add probably more, and I'll probably cut. We want to, again, have a certain amount of non-creature removal. But we want to stick to, again, our deck, mostly creatures, so we can make the most out of our commanders. ETB, essentially. So we're probably not going to include too many. I guess technically Frontier Siege has some removal too. I guess we're not going to really choose dragons though too often or ever. So yeah, I think overall we don't really need too many pieces of removal. I guess Beast Within is no longer under 50 cents or 50 cents or less. So we're probably just going to keep it at that. But yeah, when it comes to removal, let's just stick there. And then we'll actually, you know what? Let's just do, oh, wait, one more real quick. Choose your weapon. Oh, how'd that just happen? There we go. Choose your weapon if I could find it again. There you go. Let's include that because that one actually doubles up power. So I kind of forgot about that as well. So it's kind of how, one thing leads to another. Let's make sure we add in Fire Shrieker at some point too, if I can not forget to that. Oh, I typed in removal up? What in the world? Removal. I don't know. It showed up. Okay, anyways. They knew what I was talking about apparently. So there you go. Let's go with a Raft now. Let's see. There's not too many green Wraths that are probably budget. There we go. Neverall's Disc. That is just a, hey, you need to get rid of things. Get rid of them right now. Is Azuri's Predation considered a Wrath? Because it probably is, and it's probably just not underneath my threshold. Oh, it is. Oh, it is underneath the threshold. All right, let's include that one as well. That one, again, That one should be considered a Wrath, in my opinion. For each creature from one's control, you get a 4/4 green beast Phyrexian creature token, and then each of them fights different one of those creatures. So keep that in mind. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to include Fire Shrieker because I will forget. So let's just do that, Fire Shrieker. And actually, you know what? Let's look up Double Strike. Double Strike. And yeah, I'll not include creatures as well because I'm looking more for like equipment. Yeah, Brass Knuckles will do it. Gavel the Righteous needs to stay and play a couple of turns for that to happen, but it's still quite nice. Yeah, we'll just stick with that. So we're going to stick with that for our Double Strike again. Another avenue to victory can just be, hey, your commander just smacks your opponents, and takes them out. How about Double Power? Is there another one? Exponential Growth. Yeah, that one's kind of more gimmicky than Choose Your Weapon. Again, above 50-cent budget, you are able to include more and more ones like Unnatural Growth. I think that's the one where it's like, hey, every one of your creatures doubles in power. Great, cool. But when it comes to actually budget, yeah, I mean, it doesn't include those, which is completely fine, but you can still take your opponents out in a lot of good ways. And actually, let's talk about that next. Okay, so for this tactic, I'm going to be more so going for, and let's just add a new start quick list. Yeah, we're going to be going for more effects that can help us pump our creatures and get damage through. Now, we already have a good amount of those, but just to add a couple of more. So let's do creatures. Gain trample, I guess. Let's just do gain trample, and typically that'll give us like our overrun type effects. So here we go. So yeah, overruns in there. Obviously, already have Enraged Forerunners, which is nice. Dragon Throne Shark here can actually be incredible with this kind of a commander because, hey, yeah, a repeatable way to give our creatures essentially our commander's power is insane. Kamal is a nice one as well. And actually, sneaky thing with Kamal and kind of mean, but you know what? It's your opponent's fault if they actually lean into this, or if they fall into this trap. If they cast a board wipe that destroys creatures and you've got mana open, you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to warn you before you cast this Wrath of God. If you cast this, I will remove your lands because you can make any land into a 1/1. It's still a land. And then they're like, oh, no. Okay, well, yeah, my lands are gone now. So it's a good kind of board wipe protection as well, on top of it being a great repeatable overrun effect for you. Again, I did say overrun. See, here's the thing again. I'll include this in the list, but again, I'm going to have to balance the numbers at the end of this to be like, yeah, I don't want to include too many non-creatures. So to ensure that, I essentially have enough, non-creature effects, it's probably a good thing. Yeah. I think that's probably good. Yeah, let's just probably, I'm just going to do let's take out trample and then just do get and then end of turn. Because that's probably another way, end of turn, just to get just straight up pump effects too. I think we're probably going to be good on this, though. I don't think there's too many other effects that I really can think of in budget. Again, obviously, Trample the Hordes, yeah. Not budget-friendly, unfortunately. Or maybe fortunately, so everyone's not playing, Infect. That being said, yeah, I think any number of creatures' power, So yeah, I think that's probably going to be it for our pump effects. Again, we already have a good amount of ways to win, a good amount of ways to take players out, a good amount of pump effects for us. So I think we're going to stick with that. Okay, and so, philosophy when it comes to actually building commander decks, obviously you want, the rule of thumb is for most commander decks, 10 ramp, 10 removal, 10, and removal includes just straight target removal and also wrath. And then it comes to, as well, 10 draw. So we kind of have all those met, essentially, and then some. Obviously, we're going to have more cards than we need right now, but we're going to cut down. But right now, I'm just going to kind of try to clean up a little bit on the end of this. So let's just find out what kind of creatures we might have missed. CMC, if I can type correctly. What kind of creatures I missed in that 5-6 range. I said less than 5. Here we go. Less than 7. Greater than 4. Let's do that. There's a better way to type this out, I'm sure. And also, I think you can probably put mana value instead of CMC, but I'm sticking with this. Because again, when I was searching for those big creatures earlier with the effects, I was searching for ones that were of a certain threshold. So keep that in mind. Let's see. So now we can kind of see just overall what we can get help with in other ways. So Rampaging Balefs can be a great one because yeah, we've got plenty of ways to ramp, so help us make an army. Seal Hellkite, a good way to just destroy things and get through with a flyer. Loyal Guardian can be a good way to build our team. That one's probably a cut. Duplicate's a nice, removal effect. It can be pretty big as well. Let's just include that for now. Might probably be cut. Loyal Guardian, again, can grow our team throughout the game, but that's okay. Yeah, this one is pretty great, though. Thunderfoot Baloth. Control your commander. Other creatures get +2/+2 and trample, which is lovely. I guess it pumps itself too. Soul New Phyrex, it can be an insane way to protect our entire team. And I guess that's something else too. You might want to include some protection. We already talked about some ways to protect that we already included with some of the bigger things, but yes, more ways to protect our team can be fantastic. Unfortunately, Heroic Intervention, not a budget-friendly card. When it comes to this, though, yeah, we're just looking kind of from some really big standouts, essentially, in these colors. Grey Worm Marasa can be great recursion, essentially, bringing a card back to our hand. Speaking of recursion, Genesis might be one, too, actually, again, in a creature-based strategy. Could be a way to get our commander back to our hand, potentially, if you want to take that risk. I think that might be... Oh, Tovolar's Huntmaster. An insane effect. 6/6 attack or into the battlefield. That's got another into the battlefield we can take advantage of. Get 2/2s, and then also when it attacks, when it flips, you also get 2/2s, which is lovely. Aggressive Mammoth, yet another way to take advantage of that. Cage Breakers, we're not really focusing too much on our graveyard. Obviously, it's going to happen at some point. Silk Lash can be a great way to get rid of flyers, which is something that can really hurt us, which, we don't have a ton of flyers in green. That's okay, though. We already have Kamal, which is lovely. 5 times just funny. I think, again, we're just quickly looking. I'm trying to make this episode not be 5 hours, but, I mean, Crash of Rhino Beetles, we're probably going to get to 10 or more lands pretty quickly, so just having a 15/15 Trampler can be funny, but, again, how good is that compared to other things? Oh, here we go. Greater Tanuki, yet another kind of, probably saw this one earlier, actually, I just skipped over it. That one is going to be one that's like another great kind of just, hey, here's some ramp, but also a decent creature if it's in your hand, so keep that in mind. Realm Seekers can also just be a massive creature, and if we have, we have plenty of ways to give trample to our creatures, so being able to help get through is great, but also just a great way to get more lands into our hand if we need them, so keep that in mind. I think we're probably going to be good. Again, I don't want to be... Oh, here we go. Brutalizer Exarch. That's good removal, and also creature tutoring, and again, getting the right creature on top of our library can be huge. I think, and I keep saying this, but I keep scrolling down and seeing something else. I should probably just stop at some point. Elvish Aberration, again, is just a good ramp source for us, and a decent-sized creature we can cheat into play as well. Okay, I probably should be done with this, but let's just do this last one. Here we go. So bear down right there. Stormcloud Vanguard, being able to destroy an artifact or enchantment, again, on a big body is nice. It can help us kind of, not that we don't want to include any non-creature spells in this deck, but the more that we can kind of remove, probably the better that we are going to get this deck to be. And I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to stop right there for now, because again, I'm going to have like 200 cards I got to cut down, but yeah. So that is how I personally would build around Ghalta. Now, obviously, I've got some cutting to do, and that probably, so this episode isn't like, again, 3 hours long. I will do either on a separate episode or just do it on the side, and I'm going to include the deck list link in the description below so that you actually can, find the entire deck list on, how this deck ended up. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on my build, how I went going about the build, what cards you might have seen that I missed. And again, keep in mind, I'm doing this on, the budget of, 50 cents or less per card, except for the commander, which apparently, and the set hasn't dropped yet, so the price probably will drop. Apparently, it's like a $23 commander, although I think, actually, let me check real quick. Is there a different printing for this? Oh, okay, more. Oh, why is it showing up? Oh, there we go. 11 apparently for the other version. So there you go. Apparently there's another version of the card that might be $11. So there you go. Make sure you're checking your versions when it comes to actually buying commanders. So there you go. But yeah, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on all of this. I hope that you enjoyed the episode. Check out that link in the description below. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.